Chapter 28 on Fortitude. You must show fortitude, sabr, for it is one of this matter's foundations, and is inescapable as long as you are in this abode. It is a noble trait, and a great virtue. God the Exalted has said, O you who believe, seek help in fortitude and prayer, for indeed God is with those who have fortitude. Chapter 2, verse 153. And we have made them leaders, guiding by our command when they had fortitude. Chapter 32, verse 24. And, indeed, those who have fortitude will be paid their wages without measure. Chapter 39, verse 10. The Messenger of God, may blessings and peace be upon him, has said, Fortitude is the commander of the believer's soldiers, and there is much good in the patient endurance of that which one finds unpleasant. And in his advice to Ibn Abbas, know that victory comes with fortitude, relief with hardship, and that with each difficulty comes ease. Know that happiness depends on the occurrence of nearness to God, which in turn depends on always following the truth and avoiding falsehood. The soul is, by its very nature, inclined to detest truth and lean towards falsehood. The determination of the seeker of felicity is thus always in need of fortitude, sometimes to force the soul to follow the truth and sometimes to force it to avoid falsehood. Fortitude is of four kinds. Firstly, patiently enduring one's perseverance in acts of obedience. This is realized inwardly through sincerity and presence of the heart, and outwardly through holding constantly to them, showing zeal, and performing them in the correct and lawful way. This kind of fortitude is helped by remembering God's promised rewards, both immediate and to come, for obedience. The man who keeps to this kind of fortitude reaches the station of nearness, where he will find indescribable sweetness, pleasure, and intimacy in acts of obedience. The one to whom this happens must not rely on it in preference to God. Secondly, patient endurance in renouncing sins. This is realized outwardly by avoiding them, and by keeping away from the places where they might be committed, and by preventing the soul from discoursing upon them and from inclining to them. For the very beginning of a sin is a thought. As for remembering previous sins, if this results in fear or remorse, it is good. If not, then refraining from it is better. This kind of fortitude is helped by remembering God's threats of punishment in this world and the next for disobedience. The one who keeps to this kind of fortitude will be honored by God with finding all disobedience so repugnant that entering the fire would be easier for him to bear than the committal of the smallest sin. Thirdly, patient endurance of unpleasant things. These are of two kinds. The first comprises of those which come from God without an intermediary, as for example, illness, infirmity, loss of wealth, or the death of dear relatives or friends. This kind of fortitude is realized inwardly by forsaking restlessness, which is to become annoyed and irritated, and outwardly by not complaining to any creature. This is not incompatible with describing an illness to a physician or with one's eyes overflowing with tears at a time of loss, but it is, however, incompatible with slapping one's cheeks, rending one's clothes, wailing, and such like. This kind of fortitude is helped by the knowledge that impatience is painful in itself, in addition to its leading to punishment and the loss of reward. Complaining to one who can neither benefit nor protect his own self is foolish, and such are all creatures. Furthermore, to complain is evidence of not finding one's sufficiency in God. As God says, فَسُبْحَانَ الَّذِي بِيَدِهِ مَلَكُوتُ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ وَإِلَيْهِ تُرْجَعُونَ, in whose hand is the dominion of all things. Chapter 36, verse 83. And also of omitting to remember those verses which relate to the worth of patient endurance of losses, infirmities, and afflictions, and that God the Exalted knows better than a man that which is of most benefit to him. He has said, Exalted is He. وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُم مُّصِيبَةٌ قالوا إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ راجعون أولئك عليهم صلوات من ربهم ورحمة وأولئك هم المهتدون. We shall try you with something of fear, hunger, and diminution of wealth, lives, and fruits, and give glad tidings to those who have patience, who when stricken by hardship say, "We belong to God, and to Him we shall return." God will send blessings and mercy on them. Those are they who are guided. Chapter 2, verses 155 to 157. God will give the one who perseveres in this kind of fortitude to taste the sweetness of surrender and find rest in the serenity of contentment, rida. We will mention contentment, God willing, in due course. The second kind of unpleasant things comprise those which are caused by other men, whether by way of offenses to oneself and one's honor, or some act of withholding. Complete fortitude in this regard means preventing oneself from hating the offender, if he is a Muslim, or wishing him to come to harm, preventing one's tongue from praying to God against him, and not reproaching him at all, which thing should be accomplished either by forbearance and fortitude, through one's reliance on God's assistance, or by reconciliation in the wish for His reward. This kind of patience is helped by knowledge of that which has been handed down regarding the merit which is in suppressing one's anger, enduring injuries, and forgiving others. God the Exalted has said, "The wage of the one who is forgiving and reconciling falls on God. He does not love the unjust, and those who defend himself after he has suffered wrong, for them there is no way of blame against them. The way of blame is only against those who oppress men, and transgress in the earth without right. For such there is a painful torment. But those who endure patiently and forgive, indeed that is the great thing." Chapter 42, verses 40 to 43. The Prophet, may blessings and peace be upon him, has said, "God fills the heart of the one who suppresses his anger, when able to carry out its demands, with serenity and faith. And a herald will call out on the day of rising, 'Let those whose reward must be granted by God arise,' and there shall arise those men who were forgiving of others." The one who perseveres in this kind of fortitude will be honored by God with a goodly character, which is the source of all virtues and the foundation of all perfections. The Prophet has said, may blessings and peace be upon him, "Nothing shall weigh more heavily in the balance than a goodly character. A servant may attain through his goodly character the rank of the one who frequently prays and fasts. And the ones I shall love most, and who will sit the closest to me on the day of rising, are those among you who are best in character." Ibn al-Mubarak, may God have mercy on him, said, "Good character is to have an engaging face, to be generous with good works, and to refrain from doing harm." And the Imam al-Ghazali, may God spread his benefit, has said, "Good character is a disposition, deeply ingrained in the soul, from which beautiful acts spring easily." Fourthly, patient renunciation of desires, which are all those boastfully worldly things to which the soul inclines. Perfect patient denial is attained by inwardly stopping the soul from thinking and leaning towards them, and outwardly restraining it from seeking or coming close to them. This kind of fortitude is helped by knowledge of the distraction from God and His worship, which comes from seeking and fulfilling desires, the risk of falling into the suspect and prohibited things, and the arousal of greed for the world and the wish to remain therein so as to be able to enjoy its pleasures. Abu Sulaiman ad-Darani said, "To abandon a single desire is of more benefit to the heart than a year's worship." God will honor the one who grows accustomed to denying himself his desires, by removing the love of these things from his heart, until he attains the state described by a certain Gnostic who said, "My desire is that I should not desire, so that I may abandon that which I do not desire, and thus not be deprived of that which I desire." And providential success is from God.